Alright, so this latest chapter of Dragon Ball Super served to only further my enjoyment of this current arc. The satisfaction to be had with this one was immense, but at the same time is set to act as a mere precursor to all that is to come in due time. I am hype and you should be as well. In the previous chapter, which feels like forever since we covered it, considering all that has transpired with the channel in the meanwhile. But yeah, Granolah had his wish granted and effectively became the strongest warrior in the universe at a cost. Meanwhile, on Beerus' planet, Vegeta was practicing the Hakai technique possessed by the gods to no avail. At some point, the Oracle Fish would mention the rise of the strongest warrior in the universe to come, which caused a bit of a stir. One that would see Vegeta properly use the Hakai technique on a mere pebble with all the confidence in the world. But again, Granolah had done it. He was now the strongest warrior in the universe, as made evident by his innate use of the Hakai technique on an entire boulder as a narrative comparison. He'd then eventually make his way back to the Heeters and demand to know of Frieda's current location, an inquiry which quickly turned combative with the difference in their powers being pretty drastic. Granolah was absolutely destroying them, and afterwards he had detailed the source of his power to be the Dragon Balls, along with the condition that he has but only 3 years left to live. He had traded everything for this chance at revenge. But seeing as Alec had aspirations of his own, having Frieza as a business partner, he decided to use the Saiyans as a means of thwarting Granolah. With this latest chapter, we would open up to Goku and Whis, as Whis would quiz Goku on what exactly differentiates Angelkin from himself. Now, Goku's far from a smart guy when it comes to anything beyond combat, so he didn't have a clue. But just then the staff of Whis would whiz by as its wielder would narrowly evade its trajectory without even a glance or second of recognition. Meanwhile, Goku was struck by the very same staff. This was the difference between them. Angels are perpetually in the state of Ultra Instinct, whereas Goku relegates the technique to a solitary transformation. However, with a calm and steady heart, his body should be able to move involuntarily at all times. And when I think of Goku and a heart, it kinda draws me back to the Cell Saga, which is no good. Thus making the current goal of his progression the ability to utilize Ultra Instinct in his base form, as to do otherwise is a great loss of stamina, which has caused him to be vulnerable at crucial moments. However, Whis would suggest using the transformation aspect as a last resort instead. Now, this would obviously take a while, but Whis would convey the thought that they may not have that much time and would address Vegeta as well as it pertained to him also. The message of Whis was a bit cryptic as to avoid meddling too much into the mortal affairs, but he would tell them that they must strive to surpass their previous selves from the day before. Now, this was a fine piece of advice, but a bit implied with training, but we of course knew the reason he was saying this was because of Granolah's presence. Goku would then excitedly question if it was a new enemy on the horizon, as Whis too would question the notion of this being an enemy, much to their collective confusion. From here, we would shift to the perspective of our questionable enemy Granolah himself, who had now returned to the planet Cereal. He intended to keep his distance from his elderly friend until he had vanquished Frieza, perhaps to avoid confronting the foolishness of his wish. However, even from such a substantial distance away, Granolah, having had his eye further augmented by the power of his wish, was able to see his old friend even still. The next perspective change would come quickly, as it was Alec and his gang. He was sending his goons to Earth, but first, they were to question Zuno a bit. They planned to take advantage of Goku and Vegeta to deal with Granolah, as previously stated. Now Goss looked to be a bit perturbed, the reason being that he would have liked to have fought Granolah. Now Alec would do his best to reassure the guy and tell him that the time for him to fight has yet to come, as he is the only one of them that can hope to surpass Frieza. Now, I've already expressed my expectations for Goss in terms of combat with the previous chapter discussion, but with the second part of that, I wonder if they're still basing their summations off of Frieza's power prior to his death. I mean, the ability to sense ki is largely exclusive to the frequenters of Earth, and so I have to question if they're working off of dated information. Because although we have long since passed the era of Namek Saga Frieza being considered absurdly powerful, it's not as if the entirety of the universe is able to progress like our Saiyan main characters. The Heeters profit off of good intel, and so perhaps this will be their folly. Just some food for thought there. But yeah, Alec was confident that they would be the ones to emerge victorious. It would then be weeks before they would finally arrive on Zuno's planet. Now Maki was furious that she would have to give Zuno a kiss before having a question of hers answered, an aspect of this guy that I had completely forgotten. Super ridiculous, but he had taken a creepy liking to her and would answer 10 of her questions as a result. Now, in these few weeks, the progression of Goku and Vegeta was astounding. Goku was evading the accelerated whirls of Whis' staff with no issue. He now possesses a newfound degree of control over the Ultra Instinct technique. On the other hand, we would have Vegeta facing a waterfall. Wooden logs would drift over and downwards as he would leap into action and destroy each of them. He'd progress onto moving targets and multiple at that. And I love the tutelage of Beerus so much. He was over here sipping on his soda while chucking these logs into the water. While Goku has the affirming angel Whis presenting him with a smiling face, Vegeta had the feline tsundere Beerus, who would do everything he could to strengthen his pupil while refusing to outright acknowledge his own involvement and care. It's such a fitting dissonance. But just then, Beerus would really kick it up a notch and have a gigantic log piece fall. From here, Vegeta would not falter and would immediately go to destroy it as well. And destroy he did, even shaving off a major portion of the mountain itself, removing the waterfall along with it, much to the dismay of Beerus. But this I love to see. Granolah is in for a rude awakening. Perhaps he was the strongest yesterday, but today is a new day indeed. Splitting godly and angelic techniques amongst Goku and Vegeta was certainly an interesting approach that I feel benefits them both really well, as both are equally cool in their own rights. But after some time, Oil and Maki would make their way to Earth after asking their questions of Zuno and discovering the weaknesses of Goku and Vegeta. Weaknesses revealed to be their wives, as they would firstly pay Chi-Chi a visit. They would request that she call for her husband as they had a job for him to fulfill. They would then involve Bulma in the conversation under the guise of a nefarious villain being out there to defeat. Now Chi-Chi was about the bag, so if fighting meant Goku would bring in a bit of change for a change, she was all for it. Goku was already quaking in his boots agreeing to come home, but then Bulma would mention that this threat was apparently the strongest in the universe, which of course garnered the immediate attention of our two main characters, which I gotta tell you is so nice to say. Vegeta at this point shares the spotlight just as much as Goku, and so I can say with confidence that Dragon Ball Super has two main characters. They'd wonder if this was the same entity the Oracle Fish had divined and would subsequently agree to face them. As such, the two would then return to Earth. Meanwhile, Maki and Oil would make their way elsewhere in Bulma's estate, being up to no good. Now, just before returning to Earth, Goku would speak of how much he has progressed recently, which caught the ear and annoyance of Lord Beerus. And so Beerus would call out to Vegeta, passing on to him an earring, a signifier of those capable of using Hakai, then telling him to go and prove that the signature technique of the gods of destruction is superior to that of the angels, to which Vegeta would gladly accept. Now treating this as a sort of challenge, Whis would again provide his signature to Goku's gi. Very petty indeed. But listen friends, let you and I be a bit honest here. Is there a single serious fight in the series where Goku's gi remains fully intact throughout the entire duration? I don't think so. And listen, in comparison to the astronomical levels of drip bestowed upon the Principal Saiyans Vegeta by this one earring, it's just too great to compare to. This was so simple, but when I tell you that it is probably the most satisfying thing we have gotten for this character throughout this entire series, I am not exaggerating. The progression of Vegeta, especially in this arc, is far more compelling than that of his rival Goku. This is more than just a struggle of power and drive to achieve, which is great on its own. This is emotional growth and a triumph over one's troubled past. This alone has enriched my experience reading this manga so tremendously that I cannot just gloss over it. Not to mention that we have Beerus over here like a black mama on Christmas when you unwrap that console she told you weren't getting. From here, however, Whis would implore them to exercise caution with this threat. Goku would question if their opponent was really that nasty, but Whis couldn't exactly label him to be nasty. And again, to go into any further detail for him would be too much meddling, and so he would have to leave it at that. Now, as for what Maki and Oil were up to, they had stolen the Dragon Radar, which wasn't detecting anything, as the Dragon Balls on Earth were presently dormant. However, the ones on the planet Cereal were still available. Now, these two criminals would narrowly avoid being busted by Chi-Chi, but she had only come to further inquire about their payment situation because Chi-Chi does not play about her chips. Goku and Vegeta would meet the two and be ready to depart immediately. At this point, their wives would caution them as well, and here, Goku would mention how at least the Earth isn't in peril yet again, which I for one am really grateful for. Dragon Ball isn't exactly a series I go to for radical ingenuity, rather it's a bastion of a familiar and straightforward shonen approach. But even then, it's not to say I don't appreciate a good switch up. In fact, I would like to think that such a thing is even more apparent in such a case. From here, they would find themselves within the Heeters ship, which was rather luxurious. The trip would take them approximately 18 days. Vegeta would then express a bit of skepticism with such a dazzling ship being possessed by a tribe in need, but no matter. Goku would be enjoying the endless buffet, whereas Vegeta would be engaged in a bit of underwater training. Definitely not on par with the gravity training he is so well known for, but even still it is something, and we work with the tools that we have available to us. From here, the devious Maki would contact Granolah, whose patience was running a bit thin. She would begin her lie by saying that Frieza was onto them and was sending two of his faithful goons to the planet Cereal as they speak. A challenge Granolah would welcome, as it would be an opportunity to beat the answers out of them. However, Maki would then include that the two assassins were members of the now extinct Saiyan race, a convention that would utterly blow the mind of Granolah, as the Saiyans were the ones who slaughtered his people by Frieza's decree. With this, Granolah would exit his ship and await the arrival of the two. It's been 50 long years, but here and now, he planned to have his revenge. And that was the chapter. Now, 50 years is a very long time and certainly has nothing to do with Goku and Vegeta, so seeing how this will turn out will be very exciting indeed. Dragon Ball Super is at this point a monthly pleasure for me, and I cannot stop saying it. So far, I am enjoying this arc several times more than the Moro one, and I hope to see things continue along in this regard. Still waiting on that Frieza appearance, but there's plenty more fun to be had. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the chapter and video as well, and if you did, you should probably consider subscribing to Plot Armor with notifications on, because this is the sort of content that we provide on a nearly daily basis. Because when it comes to bringing you some of the best Dragon Ball Super content on the platform, Plot Armor has you covered. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.